Now, yesterday at the Video Game Awards, a trailer for a long-rumored Star Wars game from the developer Quantic Dream dropped, a game called Star Wars Eclipse, that will, in their words, allow you to play as a diverse cast of charismatic characters, each with their own story, abilities, and role to play in the tapestry of events that could alter the carefully balanced piece of the Outer Rim. And before really even getting into that, let's acknowledge how nice it was not to see an EA logo on this, that they, of course, not all too long ago lost their exclusive rights to Star Wars games, that Lucasfilm Games has sort of risen from the ashes from LucasArts and will now be distributing games from a wide variety of publishers, which I hope means that it won't be like the EA days anymore where we got like one game every other year. Instead, it'll be 2 games every year or so like it was back in the day, or the heyday of LucasArts when we were just constantly getting good Star Wars games, it felt like. Anyway, getting to my initial thoughts on the trailer itself, well, I think it looked pretty awesome. It looks epic, and it looks grand, and it looks amazing, to be completely honest. Now again, it's just a trailer, and a cinematic trailer at that. It's not actual gameplay, so what the game will actually be and look like, well, they didn't offer us many details at all. What I read before was pretty much the extent of any kind of information about the game itself that they gave us. But the trailer itself, again, looks phenomenal. And only time will tell if the game itself will match the feel or the epicness of this trailer, or if it'll be something a lot smaller in scope and scale, which is probably going to be the case. Now, I don't know much about Quantic Dreams. I've never played any of their other games. I know Detroit Become Human. I've seen somebody play it, so I kind of get the gist of it. And from what I've heard, they're more kind of story-based, very narrative-based games, kind of choose-your-own-adventure-ish games from what I saw. Now, I could be dead wrong. That's just what I saw. And so I don't know what this is going to be exactly. They describe it as an action-adventure game, so hopefully that means a little bit more than what they've done in the past. Hopefully they're kind of pushing their own boundaries here. And it's going to be, yes, still a very story-driven game, but a little more action in it as well. Either way, I am excited and to try to dig a little bit into the content of the trailer, what we saw, and maybe try to take something away, which is difficult. It's a lot of different kind of scenes, a lot of different characters shown to us, and some drummers that look like they're from Avatar. And I don't mean the Airbender, I mean the blue-skinned one. That's at least the impression I got at the very end, that they had this Avatar look to them, or this very tribalistic look. Anyway, the first thing I want to bring up is that Yoda was in this trailer, and I guess I should back up and mention that this is in the High Republic era, which I'll talk more about at the end, towards the end of the video, more about my thoughts on the High Republic era. But for now, let me just say that this is pretty much the first time we are seeing Yoda in the High Republic era. If you've been reading the books and comics, he's kind of been said to be on a sabbatical. He's just kind of away, and we really don't know exactly why. So it is interesting to see him in the classic Jedi Council chambers on Coruscant, having him look out at the city, and who knows if we will get a lot from him in the game. Who knows if we get to play as Yoda, or if we just interact with him, or if he's just in the trailer, because that gets people to pay attention. Next, we have some scenes that maybe take place on Jeddah. We have what look like the pilgrims from Rogue One, very similar anyway. I don't know, I haven't tried to compare them side to side, but when I initially saw them, I thought, hey, that looks like Jeddah. So maybe we are going to Jeddah at some point. Maybe a lot of this takes place on Jeddah. I don't know, maybe some kind of calamity takes place there that turns the planet into what we see in Rogue One, which is kind of ironic considering what happens to it in Rogue One. Who knows exactly, but we have seen, fallen over Jedi statues from the ages gone by. So who knows what's going to happen here? Who knows what happens to Jeddah 200 years before the prequels and 200 years before we basically see it in Rogue One. Then we saw a Nemodian, and we saw some droid control ships in some sort of battle, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are thinking this is from the Phantom Menace or the prequel era, especially considering, again, we had Yoda, we had a planet at the start that looked very similar to Naboo. I don't know if that's an earlier Naboo or what it was, or just a completely different planet, but certainly some similarities there. Anyway, maybe a little strange that they seem to be using the same style of droid control ship. I don't know, 200 years is a long time, though if it's working, maybe they just stick with the design that helps explain why Star Wars or the Star Wars galaxy is not even more advanced than it is. That kind of technology stagnates from time to time. At the very end of the trailer, then, we have something or someone rising out of what looks like kind of tar. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know if this is what we have to try to stop in the game, either stop this sort of summoning ritual, or if we have to stop this person, this being, whatever he is, after he comes back. I'm going to guess that somehow during an eclipse. This is when this creature or this being gets summoned by these tribalistic looking characters. What it all means, who knows, but I'm sure in time we will learn more. Maybe through the High Republic and what we are learning in that era right now in the books and comics, we will learn more about what this is. Other than that, a lot of cool imagery in the trailer. Again, it looks very grand and epic. I don't want to go scene by scene and try to analyze everything. I've said before, I think that's kind of a fruitless task because everything is out of context, especially here when we know so little about where exactly in the High Republic timeline this will be taking place. And we know really not that much about the High Republic itself at this point. We are still learning quite a bit, again, through all the books and comics. And speaking of the High Republic era and all those books and comics, which when it was initially announced, that's what it was supposed to just be, just books and comics, and that if it was successful, we would get games and we would get, maybe shows or movies or whatever else. And I am curious how well the High Republic era is doing. It seems like, it's only been going on for about a year at this point. So it seems like, considering we have a series and a game that have both been in development for at least some amount of time, I am curious if it is doing extremely well, which doesn't seem to be how it feels. I don't know that a lot of people are really into the High Republic era right now. I could be dead wrong. But to me, this is kind of strange. It feels like maybe they were planning to do a lot more with the High Republic era than they ever initially announced or led us to believe. And I don't really have a problem with the High Republic era. I don't know that it's been fantastic, but I don't know that it's been as terrible as some people want to report, and mainly people who haven't read the books and comics. I know there was a big ordeal or fuss about a character that was a rock, which, granted, is a stupid idea. However, even in the book itself, it is played as a joke. It's really strange, to be completely honest with you, because it's kind of... in a way, it's kind of condescending when something you are reading and trying to take seriously kind of makes fun of itself. So, I didn't like the Rock character. I didn't like that they put him in there. But a lot of people seem to make it out to be this, they're creatively bankrupt. They don't know what to do. They're making characters that are literal rocks. When you read the book, though, it's just a joke, and it doesn't really need to be in there. So I understand why people complained about it, but I think the people who complained about it the most didn't even really understand why they should be complaining about it. But anyway, to move on from that, as I was saying before, I think the High Republic era has been okay so far. I think one of the biggest issues I have with it, and I'm going to sound like I'm a hypocrite, but I think it's almost been over-planned in a way. I think there's so many things going on that you kind of lose the core narrative of the whole thing. I'm not even sure what the core narrative is supposed to be. We have the Nile, these group of space Vikings they've been called, and then you have the Drenger, I think that's what they're called, basically the plant monsters, and they've kind of emerged but haven't really been part of the story. They've kind of been in the background, and there's other things going on as well, and it's kind of hard to just follow the main story of what is going on, and there are so many characters that they've introduced as well. And so to me, it's, like I said, it's kind of the opposite of the sequels where they just blindly went into it without a plan. This, I think they've kind of overplanned to the point where it doesn't feel as natural as it could. When you write a story, yes, you want to have a plan and an outline, but you don't want to have it so focused that, when you're telling that story, you don't want to deviate from your plan. And when you have so many different writers working on different aspects, I think you have this problem of, everybody's trying to write their one part of the story, and they don't have so much flexibility because it has to fit in perfectly with this other part of the story. So I think they actually have the opposite problem of the sequels, where they have such a grand plan that it feels like they have a grand plan, and it doesn't feel so much like a story, if that makes sense. Furthermore, I think my biggest problem or biggest concern when it comes to the High Republic era is that it is replacing the Old Republic era. Now, I know we are getting a remake of KOTOR, but we don't know if we're getting anything beyond that in relation to the Old Republic, whereas clearly with the announcement of this game, with the coming of the Acolyte and the continuation of books and comics, they are going all in on the High Republic era, and I don't know that you're going to go all in on multiple different kind of eras. We have the Mandoverse, clearly going all in on that. We now have the High Republic era, clearly going in on all that. Do you really want to kind of bring in a third era to really confuse the more casual fans? I don't know. I think that's my biggest concern is if I could pick between the two, High Republic or Old Republic, it's not even a question. I would clearly go to Old Republic and have them explore that timeline more to pretty much keep what is intact already, what has already been done with the Old Republic, keep that core intact and just build on it even more. Instead, they decided to go 200 years before the prequels and give us this High Republic era, which again, it hasn't been terrible, but it's a really questionable decision to go with this time period, I think. And I really do wonder if it's their desire to kind of create their entire own new, unique time period, even though it's not really that unique when you're this close to the prequels and everything else we know. And, you might say, well, that's what they tried to do with the sequel trilogy. But even the sequel trilogy, it's coming off the heels of something else. It's not original in and of itself. It does have to follow very, closely, or it should. We can argue if it does or not. It should very closely follow what came before it with the original trilogy and the prequels, whereas this, going 200 years before the prequels, allows you quite a bit of freedom, not as much as going even further back would, so that's questionable again. But again, I do wonder if this is kind of their idea of, this is how we leave our mark on Star Wars, by creating a whole new, basically unexplored time period. And that's why we're getting High Republic instead of Old Republic. Anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts. I could probably ramble on and on, which is why I tend to script videos. And if you couldn't tell, this isn't scripted. This is just my thoughts. And I'm going to try to do more videos this way if people enjoy kind of the more, conversation-esque feel to my videos rather than the more robotic scripted versions. Anyway, again, I think this trailer looked fantastic. And I don't have a problem with the High Republic era as long as it doesn't mean we have lost the Old Republic era, if you will. That we're going to focus on this and ignore something that a good portion of the fan base really enjoyed over trying to create something for the sake of creating it, perhaps. Well, either way, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of what I had to say here, or tell me what you think of this trailer. What do you think of the High Republic era? Do you think it is kind of replacing the Old Republic era? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.